Hi and welcome to A&P with Emily. I want to do a really quick shout out before we get started. I launched yesterday and I got so much support and so much love, so I want to say thank you so much to all of my group for Access to Medicine group, especially Belle. I know I did a shout out yesterday, but I'm going to do a proper one today, just in case she doesn't read the description. And I want to thank all my A&E team as well. They've been super supportive and they've been lovely and they've subscribed and all sorts. So I hope this helps you guys too. I'm probably not teaching you anything that you don't know, so but even if it's just this, just thank you very, very much. It means a lot to me. So without further ado, welcome to A&P with Emily. I'm Emily, and today I'm going to take you through some really, really basic anatomical terminology. So we're going to go through the anatomical position, why that's important, and then go through the planes of the body and a few directional terms as well. So nothing too complex today, just the basics. So the anatomical position is used by doctors, used by nurses, used by everyone, and it helps us identify where things are, or it will do when we look at it with directional terms. But the anatomical position basically is, as you see Kenny. Oh, sorry, I haven't said, had I? This is Kenny. I'm really bad at introducing. This is Kenny. I've had him for a little while. He was a present from my wonderful family over here in the UK. So if we look at Kenny's position, he's standing upright, his feet are facing forward, and his arms are relaxed laterally by his side. Now, there's a few questions on whether the palms should be facing out, so the palms should be facing like this, or whether the palms should be interiorly. I think that depends on where you read. I've always been taught that palms facing out, feet forward, and in a standing upright and relaxed position. So, presuming that our body is in that anatomical position, we're going to look at some of the planes of the body. Now there are four. We've got 3 vertical ones and 1 horizontal one. Now, when I talk about these, I want you to imagine like an invisible dividing line that just goes straight through the body, all the way through it. So starting at one side and going all the way through, like a laser beam or something. I wish I had a laser beam. That would be really cool. I don't. Maybe later. So I'm going to start with the frontal, anterior, or coronal plane, as it's sometimes called. So the frontal plane, or the anterior plane, comes right down here, and it separates the body into front and back portions. So front we probably know is interior, so that's why it's called the anterior plane sometimes. So that's our first vertical line of division, shall we call it. The second one comes straight down the middle here, and that's the sagittal plane. So if you were to cut anything, like say if you were to take the brain and you were to cut it in half, that way you would have a sagittal section of the brain. Fabulous. So then that divides the body not necessarily into equal parts, but it divides it into left and right regions. Now there's a line that sits very comfortably alongside this, and that's called the mid-sagittal line. Can also be called the medial plane, or the medial line, medial, middle, and it separates the body into equal left and right regions. Now the other one that we have is the horizontal one, and that's the transverse plane, which sits around your pelvic or your groin area, and it separates your body into top and bottom portions. Now, just want to run through those again so that we've all got them. So we've got the anterior or coronal plane, which is front and back. We've got the sagittal, which is left and right. We've got the medial, which is equal left and right. And we've got the transverse, which is top and bottom. Perfect. So we've done anatomical position. We've done the coronal, we've done the planes of the body. And now I just want to move on to the main directional terms that you're going to hear in order to recognise where one body part is in relation to another, and also within relation to the planes of the body. So let's start with the really basic ones. So anything towards the front of the body is anterior, anything towards the back of the body is posterior. So if you've ever heard somebody's butt called the posterior, that will be why. Anything towards the top of the body will be superior or cranial, and anything towards the bottom of the body will be inferior or caudal. So, what else have we got? So we've got medial, which is obviously towards the midline or towards the mid-sagittal line or the median line, whatever one you want to call it. And then opposite to that is lateral, so that's away from the midline. So an example of that would be your arms are lateral to your torso, but your torso is medial to your arms. So it just means your arms are away from the midline of your body, but your torso in relation to your arms is more towards the midline of the body than your arms are. You've also got two relative terms that I actually really like. They're probably my favourite terms. So proximal and distal. Proximal as in you're in someone's proximity and they're quite close to you. So that's a body part that is closer towards a central point or towards the torso or the midline of the body. And then distal, which is away from that, so just essentially the opposite, distal, distance, further away. That's how I like to remember it. So if we take an example, let's take, I'm sorry, he's got fairy lights on him because it's Christmas time in my household, so yeah, he's got little snowflake lights on him, and his little Christmas hat, festive as hell, Kenny. Okay, so we've got Kenny's finger. Let's take this one, if you can see that. So if we're going to talk about distal, Kenny's finger is distal to his wrist. So it just means it's further away from this central point than the wrist is. So that would mean that the wrist is distal to the elbow and the elbow is distal to the shoulder. Just means it's further away. If you replace the word distal with it's further away, it means the same thing. So if we took another body part, let's say Kenny's femur. So Kenny's femur is proximal to the knee. So that just means that Kenny's femur is more towards or closer to the central point of the body, or just a central point, and Kenny's patella or Kenny's knee is proximal to the to his ankle, and his ankle is proximal to his toes. So all of that, distal is just, you've got some distance in it, and proximal just means it's closer to the midline or the central point of whatever it is that you're talking about, or the midline of the body. So I hope that clears a few things up. So I just want to go through some bits and pieces. So just run through it again. We've got coronal plane, front and back. Sagittal plane, left and right. Medial plane, equal left and right. Transverse, top and bottom. Superior, inferior, medial, lateral, and then proximal is, I need little arrows, don't I? Maybe I should get a laser pointer. So medial is towards the midline of the body, and lateral is away from the midline of the body. And then you've got proximal and you've got distal. Okay, so I hope that clears a few things up, and I hope that's nice and basic for you guys. And I am hoping to do some medical terminology in my next lesson. So we'll be taking those really long, rubbish Latin medical words that nobody understands what they mean, and taking them apart and realising that actually it's quite easy and it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Alright, so I hope you have a great rest of the day and take care. I'll see you soon.